Okay, so I hope you're ready for a very deep video, very deep and meaningful video today, because we're going to be talking about consumer society. Got Mark Wahlberg there, perfectly summing up the consumer with his Chanel shopping bag. Oh dear. So what are we going to be looking at in today's video? Well, basically, we're going to have a look at some speaking questions, the kind of thing you might get asked in the speaking exam at C2 Proficiency level, so that'll be fun. And I'll try to answer them myself. I'll just give a general answer to these questions, but I'd like to see your comments under the video and see what you think, see the kind of things you might want to mention in the exam situation, or just things that you want to mention about yourself, because, we might all find it interesting. Let's have a look at some questions then. So the first one it asks us here, it says speaking. Discuss these questions. Right, so what is a shopaholic? Do you think you are one? What percentage of items that you buy are things you want rather than need? First of all, let's address that first question there. It says, what is a shopaholic? Well, first of all, the word shopaholic is kind of annoying because an alcoholic is someone who's addicted to alcohol, but a shopaholic is addicted to shopahol? No, obviously they're addicted to shopping, right? And we've started calling them shopaholics, I guess, because, the most typical addict we know is a alcoholic, so shopaholic. People sometimes say chocoholic when they're addicted to chocolate, trivializing a deadly disease that takes the lives of millions every year all around the world. But anyway, do you think you are one? A shopaholic, right? Yes. Definitely not. I'm definitely not a shopaholic. Are you a shopaholic? Let me know in the comments. But no way am I a shopaholic. I don't really enjoy shopping, particularly for clothes and things that I don't need. So I don't think I would consider myself a shopaholic in any way, shape or form. And then the other question is, what percentage of things that you buy are things that you want rather than need? Again, I don't really enjoy the whole process of shopping, so I really only buy things when I think I need them. Even with clothes, so I get to the point where I don't have any jumpers or jackets, and I just have to go and buy them, because if not, I'm going to freeze to death. So I would say a very low percentage of things are things that I want rather than need. But then again, I suppose, what do we really need? What's absolutely necessary? But my feeling is that I generally buy things when I feel I need them. So a little bit subjective, that answer, but next question says, how often do you buy clothes, CDs, shoes, computer games, books, and chocolate? A bit of an eclectic list there. Clothes, as I've said, really not very often. Perhaps I should buy them more often than I do. And because I don't like shopping, I try to buy a few good things that will last a long time rather than buying lots of, fashionable items. I'll buy polos, jeans, and and what do you call them, chinos and things like that. I don't go in for the latest trends or anything like that. And I like to buy sort of a few good quality things than a lot of things that are going to be ruined in the wash or whatever. CDs, never. Haven't bought a CD for about 12 years, I think, because who buys CDs now? Some sort of mad collector somewhere. Shoes, again. I've got quite a lot of shoes, but that's, I think, just because shoes last a long time, don't they, really? But I don't know when the last time was I bought a pair, so I really don't buy them very often. Certainly haven't, I don't think, that I can remember, for over a year. Computer games, no. When I was younger a bit, definitely. Now, never, basically. Books, again, no. I like reading classic novels, so I get the PDF online, and if I'm feeling a bit lazy, I'll listen to the audiobook at the same time. I have a subscription to audible.com, but they're not sponsoring me, by the way. Oh, would that it were that I had a sponsor for this. Anyway, chocolate, yeah, don't. I've got to watch my weight. I get fat very easily. Don't buy chocolate very often at all. Quite a strict diet. So hopefully all these questions are going to help with the listening activity that we're going to do in a little while. We're sort of talking about things that are going to come up in that listening test that we're going to do. How important are designer labels for you? Well, what about for you? Do you feel better if you're wearing something that has a Ralph Lauren label on it or something? For me, what I don't want is an imitation, right? So I would feel a bit self-conscious about wearing a fake Ralph Lauren polo or something like that, because I think that's a little bit, what's the word? I don't know. I find that a little bit. You're being a bit of a wannabe. No, if you're buying an imitation product. I don't mind getting things that are cheap. I don't mind wearing cheap t-shirts and stuff. That's not a problem. But if it's a label, it has to be a real label. And yeah, like I say, I do tend to buy better quality stuff most of the time. So often it is stuff, like a good make, because I think it's just going to last longer, and I don't like shopping. So there you go. I guess designer labels, are they important? Not really. Not because they're labels, just because I know they're better quality and they're going to last longer more than anything. Do you think it's necessary to keep in fashion? No, absolutely not. I hate fashion. That's one of the great things about being men. One of the few great things about being a man is that you don't really have to pay any attention to fashion, and you can just wear a jeans shirt and jumper. And I'm kind of happy I didn't go in for all of the fashion fads, even as a teenager. I'm not saying I dressed well. As a teenager, I was a bit of a nightmare. But, I remember everyone wearing G-Star jeans. That was a fad for a while. I hated them. They were horrible. They were ugly, and I could see that. I could see that the emperor was wearing no clothes. And a lot of my contemporaries, a lot of my peers could not see that. And it was just as well. I didn't have enough money to buy G-Star jeans. So there you go. I guess those grapes were just too sour. And other things, I remember everyone wearing waist jackets for a period. Everyone looked like professional snooker players, and they looked like idiots. Everyone was wearing a shirt and a waistcoat, and I just hated it. And I never went in for that. And I think after about the age of 17, 18, I dressed kind of similar to the way I do now. Very neutral. Some would call it boring. Not me though. Not me. Have you ever had to complain about something that you have bought? Oh God, I've probably been in a situation where I should have complained about something I've bought, but yeah, I don't know. And there's something I've noticed, that lately things just work better. Mobile phones and technology all seem to work better than they did when I was younger. I remember having to take things back to shops a lot and just say, this isn't working. Because I was a kid, nobody paid any attention, and they just, oh God. But yeah, I don't think so. I very rarely complain about anything. Food in a restaurant, I'm just very English. If the food comes and I'm not happy with it, I'll just go, this is terrible, and never come back. I'm never coming back here. But I don't tell anyone. I don't tell any of the people that work there. God, no. Wouldn't want to get into any kind of confrontation, would I? That wouldn't be very English of me. Would you prefer a refund or an exchange if you took an item back to the shop? Knowing me, I wouldn't know what to replace it with. So I'd just be like, I would prefer to be given the money to then decide what I want to spend it on. I don't think I would be able to, on the spur of the moment, make an exchange. So yeah, I'd have to go with refund there. Final question then, and they've all been interesting, fascinating. Do you know what legal rights you have as a consumer? I know you can take something back if it isn't damaged, right? Even if you don't have the receipt, if that's something that can be bought from their shop, I think you have a legal right to take it back. But then there are different consumer laws in different countries, so I'm not absolutely sure. I know that in Spain it's very different to the UK and the US, but that's about as far as I can. That's about all I know. No, I don't know my rights. What, as if I know my rights? I don't know anything. If not, who would you turn to for an advice? A lawyer. I was not happy with that sandwich, and I'm going to take legal action, I guess. Okay, let's just get into the listening. So this is like listening part 2 on the C2 Proficiency exam. You've got a short gap text with 9 gaps, and you have to put a word or a short phrase in the gap, right? Obviously, the sentences are going to be somewhat paraphrased. In fact, they're going to be very paraphrased. So it's a good idea when you are given the time to read through, really have a good think about what kind of expression, what kind of word is going to go in the gap. I'm going to take my face off the screen so that you can listen to this and concentrate. And then when we listen to it for the second time, I think what I'll do is I'll stop it where I found the correct information. Okay, so let's go for it, I guess.
Unit 5, 5.1, Exercise 2.
Good morning. On the programme today, we have Mike James.
Well, I managed to mess that up. So I guess let's read the introduction and then I'll give you 30 seconds or something. I think it's 45 seconds. Hang on, let me check. So it says, you will hear an interview between a radio presenter called Paula and her guest Mike James, who is the presenter of a program called Pricewise. This is a TV program which champions consumer rights. For questions 1 to 9, complete the sentences with a word or short phrase. So I just checked again. So you do have 45 seconds here to look at the gap text, the gap sentences rather, and yeah, so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to take 45 seconds and then I'll hit play basically. So let's go now.
Unit 5, 5.1, Exercise 2.
Good morning. On the programme today, we have Mike James, a familiar face on television as the champion of consumers' rights. Mike, you've been doing Pricewise a long time now. Is it something you set out to do?
Far from it, Paula. It all began in 2002 when I was a reporter on a nightly news programme. They wanted a consumer slot, so I took it on. It wasn't until nearly 10 years later that it became a programme in its own right. Now we regularly get more than 10 million viewers.
Where do the stories you look into come from?
Well, from you, the public. We get thousands of letters, phone calls and emails that tell us about poor service, ridiculous small print, malpractice and the need for information. We actually read all the correspondence and we follow up some stories immediately, but most are filed for future use on our database.
What happens when you get a particularly juicy story?
We check it out thoroughly, of course, and then we contact everyone involved, write the script and arrange filming. Sometimes we use actors and sometimes real people. Of course, it's essential that our lawyers check the script over. It's all done to very tight deadlines.
Do any particular stories stand out in your memory?
Oh yes, many. There was one about an advert which promised to give you a title for anything up to £1,000. So, Bob and Trace became Lord Robert and Lady Tracy de Vere. You also get a piece of land, but that only measures 20 centimetres by 20 centimetres. One of our researchers handed over the cash and tried to find out if being a lord would help him out in London.
And did it?
He went to Harrods, the department store, and they were very nice to him. But then they're nice to everyone. He then tried to book a table in a trendy restaurant, and he got one. But not in a prime position next to the window, but by the kitchen door. So, really, it won't do you a lot of good being a lord nowadays.
Any other interesting stories?
Well, we did a programme not long ago about shopping on the internet. The big supermarkets will deliver to your door if you order online, as you know.
Yes, it's a great idea, but I've not actually tried it out.
Well, it does usually work well. However, we did find that some customers hadn't received quite what they'd ordered. One poor man had asked for apples and got hairspray. The supermarket was very apologetic when we pointed out these problems and sent the customer some shopping vouchers.
Do you think consumers are more ready to complain these days?
Oh, yes. Research has been done that shows that attitudes have changed remarkably in the last 40 years. Take a well-known brand of trainer. You could understand if they leaked, but actually these particular ones squeaked. Now, as they cost upwards of £100, people weren't prepared to put up with this. But when they returned them to the shop didn't want to know.
So they wrote to you for help?
Yes. We bought a pair of the trainers and sent them to be inspected by an expert who said that some of the glue inside the shoe had come unstuck. We contacted the manufacturer with evidence of the problem, and they were more than happy to back down and refund the money paid by the purchasers.
Another success, then?
Yes. It's funny how quickly manufacturers and retailers react when they think they might attract bad publicity.
Indeed. It just shows what a good job you're doing. Now, next week...
Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to listen to the interview again. And as I said, I'm going to stop the recording when I think I hear the correct answer and see if I can explain how I got it. I don't know. Let's just go for it. Let's listen to that again.
Unit 5, 5.1, Exercise 2.
Good morning. On the programme today, we have Mike James, a familiar face on television as the champion of consumers' rights. Mike, you've been doing Pricewise a long time now. Is it something you set out to do?
Far from it, Paula. It all began in 2002 when I was a reporter on a nightly news programme. They wanted a consumer slot, so I took it on. It wasn't until nearly 10 years later that it became a programme in its own right.
Right, so that was quite complicated. So in 2002, he started working on a nightly news program, but he mentions the specific segment of that program that he did, and he called it a consumer slot. So a slot is like a segment of a program, right? So he started doing that on the news program, right? So yeah, it's a consumer slot. I think that was pretty difficult. Let's carry on. Okay, number 2. Let's go for it.
Now we regularly get more than 10 million viewers.
Where do the stories you look into come from?
Well, from you, the public. We get thousands of letters, phone calls and emails that tell us about poor service, ridiculous small print, malpractice and the need for information. We actually read all the correspondence and we follow up some stories immediately, but most are filed for future use on our database.
Okay, so what do they do with all of the stories, all of the calls, all of the letters that they get? They file them, they keep them, which is the same as filing, right? They file them all on a database for future use, right? They're going to use them in the future. They do read them all, but they can't address them all immediately, right? So they just put them on the database and they'll use them at some time in the future. That's the intention, right? Okay, let's listen for number 3.
What happens when you get a particularly juicy story?
We check it out thoroughly, of course, and then we contact everyone involved, write the script and arrange filming. Sometimes we use actors and sometimes real people. Of course, it's essential that our lawyers check the script over. It's all done to very tight deadlines.
Right, so the script, they use actors, obviously, to reenact the situations that they're trying to show to the public. And what is very important is that their lawyers read the scripts carefully to make sure that they don't get into any legal trouble, right? So lawyers, yeah. Okay, let's go for number 4 then.
Do any particular stories stand out in your memory?
Oh yes, many. There was one about an advert which promised to give you a title for anything up to £1,000. So, Bob and Trace became Lord Robert and Lady Tracy de Vere. You also get a piece of land, but that only measures 20 centimetres by 20 centimetres.
Right, so this advert offered to make people lords, and it offered to give them some sort of nobility title, right? So it offered to sell people a title and some land, I think. All right, let's carry on.
One of our researchers handed over the cash and tried to find out if being a lord would help him out in London.
And did it?
He went to Harrods, the department store, and they were very nice to him. But then they're nice to everyone. He then tried to book a table in a trendy restaurant, and he got one. But not in a prime position next to the window, but by the kitchen door.
Right, so this researcher rang up this company that was offering titles to people, got his title for like £1,000 or whatever, and wanted to see if being Lord Mike or whatever his name was would help him get better service in places like in Harrods or in a good restaurant in London. And he says he actually didn't. He'd managed to get a table in the restaurant, but it wasn't a good seat like by the window. It was by the kitchen door. No, is that right? The kitchen door. I think that's what was said. Okay, so obviously not a prime seat in the restaurant. Okay, let's carry on with number 6.
So, really, it won't do you a lot of good being a lord nowadays.
Any other interesting stories?
Well, we did a programme not long ago about shopping on the internet. The big supermarkets will deliver to your door if you order online, as you know.
Yes, it's a great idea, but I've not actually tried it out.
Well, it does usually work well. However, we did find that some customers hadn't received quite what they'd ordered. One poor man had asked for apples and got hairspray. The supermarket was very apologetic when we pointed out these problems and sent the customer some shopping vouchers.
Do you think consumers are more ready to complain these days?
Okay, so that was a little bit difficult, number 6. So I think in number 6, Mike talks about a story ordering food online from a supermarket. And what actually happened in this story was the supermarket customer was sent hairspray instead of what they had ordered. They had ordered some apples, and what they received was hairspray for, keeping your hair in place. So the difficult thing there is that they very quickly answered 6 and 7 together. So that might confuse you. It's confused me a little bit. Anyway, let's move on. That's what you get the 45 seconds for at the beginning, right? So that these kind of things don't happen to you. Okay, let's carry on.
Yes. Research has been done that shows that attitudes have changed remarkably in the last 40 years. Take a well-known brand of trainer. You could understand if they leaked, but actually these particular ones squeaked. Now, as they cost upwards of £100, people weren't prepared to put up with this.
Right, so Mike mentions people complaining about trainers, which, and he gives it's a bit odd the way he says this. Obviously, they're looking to trip you up. But he says you could understand if they leaked, right? Which means leak means to let water in or out of a place. basically they're permeable. That would be a problem. But in this case, it was not that. It wasn't that they leaked, it was that they squeaked, which is onomatopoeia. Squeak, squeak, squeak. And they made a noise when you walked, right? So that was the problem. They squeaked like a mouse. Okay, and then we've got the last one, number 9.
But when they returned them to the shop didn't want to know.
So they wrote to you for help?
Yes. We bought a pair of the trainers and sent them to be inspected by an expert who said that some of the glue inside the shoe had come unstuck. We contacted the manufacturer with evidence of the problem, and they were more than happy to back down and refund the money paid by the purchasers.
Another success then?
Yes. It's funny how quickly manufacturers and retailers react when they think they might attract bad publicity.
Indeed. It just shows what a good job you're doing. Now, next week...
Right, yeah. So Mike says that manufacturers and retailers are worried about poor publicity, right? They don't want anyone to go and make a story viral about their bad products. So they will back down a lot of the time if you challenge them. But there you go. A bit of a strange video today. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you are not happy with anything, or if you are happy with everything. That's probably a nicer thing for me to read. I don't know. Did you disagree with any of my answers there? Have you got anything more interesting to say than me for the speaking questions at the beginning of this video? Is there something more that you want from this channel? I don't know. More personalized content, exclusive content. Click the blue button in that case. And have a look at the options that you have there. Anyway, Merry Christmas to everyone. Even though Christmas is over, we're still on holiday, a lot of us, aren't we? Anyway, I'll see you in the next one.